shift perspective. And we just wanted to set up a live stream to get more of our thoughts and ideas out there in a conversational manner. Today we have Melissa, Lottie, and me, Vivian, your host. We're Our topic today is kind of just like the industry and uh the current status of like the film industry and how it's future it's going to be in the future. We just had the Oscars last week, and a lot of the movies that got awards and actors and actresses that got awards were people who I was excited to get recognition. Melissa, how relevant do you think big awards shows like the Oscars is in the current, film environment?
Well, so I think that frankly speaking, it's crazy to me how influential the Oscars are. It
Mm.
really are. Every single person in the entire world knows about it. It's crazy how hard people in Europe and in Africa and across Asia want that Oscar. Like literally just as hard as US based filmmakers caring as much about like our Academy Award as their own in most cases. Like frankly, in all cases that I can think of. I don't want to say that, but you know, I like everywhere I go, people are always like, yeah, my dream is to get up on that stage, do that award speech. And it's so important and impactful to so many communities in so many areas. It's also crazy like how much viewership of those movies get. Like every movies that are nominated, they get so much of a bump from being nominated for the Oscar. Even movies that are pre-nomination that are just like Oscar eligible get a bump from just that. Like a lot of the time, like just Oscar eligibility will make it more likely that a property will be able to get a publicist attached to it, that they'll be able to get onto a minor streaming platform. And almost these days, almost every single Oscar nominee makes it onto streaming platforms. Like back in 10 years ago, 2012, 2013, you didn't see that. When people were doing the Oscar rush every year, they were having to hunt for things. And a lot of the time, the international properties that were nominated were impossible to gain access to outside of big cities. Nowadays, Hulu, Netflix, they have this year in the Oscars right on their homepage, making it extremely possible for everybody in the entire world to be able to watch these properties. So we've got short format content about, you know, uncomfortable issues like abortion and child abuse getting literally millions of additional views outside of what would normally be struggling for thousands. Like I I I think that the Oscars kind of sets the bar for what an award show can do in terms of gaining visibility and having an impact through recognition. Outside of the Oscars, yeah, like there the other film events that are similar don't have that same kind of presence and visibility, which is why I think that it's disappointing that it's one of the most lacking in diversity, and that the types of films that get that bump every year are so like stagnated and basic, kind of, just because the the award, like the thing that people really love is the history of the actual award. It's the like Hollywood glamour for like the last couple hundred years. It's the red carpet ceremonies. It's the Marilyn Monroe and the like, you know, the glamour of it all. What people don't necessarily love, I don't think, are having a World War II movie that gets more visibility than any current war or altercation every single fucking year. You know, like I honestly, I really think that a lot of the movies that get nominations would not be so popular whatsoever if it wasn't for the history of the event and the surrounding culture. Like there are huge numbers of people. I myself, I don't even watch all of the Oscar movies, but nearly every one of my friends and family members do. So like I am invited to so many different events and people are just sending me their picks for weeks in advance. People from other countries, like from completely different areas, getting ready for their own individual Oscar parties on the other side of the world. Like it's ridiculous the amount of recognition that this ceremony gets. So I'm gonna leave that's my answer. I have to let my cat out real quick. I should have done this before we started.
Okay.
Note for next one. I'm gonna turn my camera off for 2 seconds.
Okay.
All right, he's better.
You mentioned that, that exposure and recognition from being on the Oscars was how films got their distribution and deal rights.
Yeah.
I mean, for for me personally, I think I've noticed that it's like a lot of like the same people, Scorsese. I mean, they're great,
Yes, but the
Oppenheimer,
reason that
great.
Scorsese does so well is because he's friggin' like literally in the same demographic. Like there are a little over 10,000 Academy Award voters. It's like 80% of them are old men that live in Los Angeles and are all in Scorsese's age demographic. So of course he does well. Because it's like he's making films for himself, which are the Oscar community. The Oscar community is predominantly senior gentlemen. So, senior movies that are made by senior gentlemen for the demographic of senior gentlemen, they're going to do better for the Oscars than other movies are because that's who gets to decide who wins and who loses. So,
Yeah, I mean that's really unfortunate because as great as Scorsese is, I think, when is it time for the next generation kind of just to like filter in. But yeah, that's just my opinion. I would really like to see more like new talent and just different kinds of, of films be recognized.
or even like, so like the thing that really got me about Killers of the Flower Moon is that it like it's a property about the I'm gonna say the name of the tribe wrong, so I'm not gonna try, but it's a property about a specific historical event for a native tribe, and most of the project happens from the perspective of one of the one of the bad people, like a white male gentleman, and then it is done in a way to like humanize him as much as possible throughout the entire process because it's through his perspective,
You think?
right?
Oh, I thought he was like. I thought it was pretty
I mean, he doesn't come across
vilified.
great. He doesn't come
Yeah.
across like a good person. He doesn't come across like a great person, but he also doesn't come across as like a comic villain from a bad movie, which is what
Mhm.
treatment anyone else would have gotten.
Mm.
So like that's he doesn't come across as a one-dimensional caricature. And that's what villainized parties come across as in every other demographic. We don't get the kind of like depth and awareness.
Mm.
Like even a like even women who are like in those positions are usually given much like less space to explain their actions, you know? So I don't know. Like it so I mean like I watched it and I liked it and I didn't dislike it as much as I thought. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Me too.
yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
it's another Scorsese. We know how it is, but it didn't feel like 3 hours. But I'm definitely,
She was actually like my choice for who I wanted to win Best Actress.
yeah,
Like,
she was amazing.
but like it it does feel like were that content in the hands of someone from that community, that story would have been told from a completely different perspective in a totally different way. And
Mm,
that's what it comes down to for me is it's just sort of like if Scorsese in at this time in his life with everything that he's done in the past wants to tell this story, he should be finding someone from this community and elevating their voice because that's what adults do when they have reached that level. They don't keep taking recognition for themselves. They don't keep like forcing the spotlight back on themselves. They, help aim it in the direction that they, with all of their power, authority, experience, and knowledge, understand that it should be aimed. So, like, that's what I think that a failing that I see a lot in, the people that we're like, the people that we look up to in the industry is that in some cases, I think that what we've seen is that people can be very grasping when it comes to power and not necessarily take the graceful path in some cases. Like the graceful path would be, I want to tell this story. I'm going to find somebody from this community and I'm going to use all of my power to like make sure that like their story gets the opportunity to be told. So,
yeah.
when we go to Africa and we teach the school program in Africa, we don't rewrite all of their stories. Like we don't like try to change their narrative in order to make it more comfortable for us or like understandable for us. We try to take it in and we'll share our perspective, we'll like nuance things here and there, but we try to make the creative choices, we try to place them in their hands. So like I think that when you're teaching or when you're like mentoring or when you are in that space, like that's where, like a lot of the actual skill comes in is in being able to see the brightness in somebody else and then not try to, take it for yourself, but to just sort of support it and let it like grow into its own thing, you know?
Mm,
Mhm.
yeah, I
Mhm.
completely agree. I mean, my favorite was Poor Things. I
Mhm.
loved. So,
Mhm. I had
like,
this like very like it's Poor Things versus Barbie in my head, which I think is like such a like sexist bullshit. You know what I mean? I don't know. Like, so here's the thing is it's like because a lot of people were like, because Poor Things came around and it was such a unexpected late in the game film, right? And that it because it does have a lot of like feminist messaging, people thought that it took a lot of the nominations that would have gone to Barbie otherwise.
I don't think so. For me, and I can only speak for myself, Barbie was more of like a general public, like let's include everybody, but Poor Things was really about females, getting out of that mold, cookie cutter, like proper proper way of acting as a woman and even I guess as a person, but I felt like it was more geared towards women.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
really I appreciated that they kept that from the book. That was the other thing that I was a little bit, because I actually had read the book, so I was a little
Mm.
bit, and I was also like, I'm pretty sure Poor Things was a director. That was a thing too. Yeah.
Hi everyone. I just want to say thanks for joining us for this live session of our podcast. If you have any questions, feel free to send me a direct message. But yeah, we're just talking about the Oscars right now, and um, yeah.
Kind of a general industry news update, but
Yeah.
just sort of our opinions on the decisions that were made this year. And right now we're talking about Poor Things and people like, I liked Poor Things more than I expected as well, because I'd read the book, and I didn't think that I thought that if they were going to make it, it should be directed by a woman. That's another thing, is I also think that Poor Things should have been directed by a woman and would have been better if it was directed by a woman. Like, I do think that it was like visually very
Yeah, I
entertaining,
love
and
stylistically. It
but
was
something that you like in the book, she is like retains her like the brain transfer is not real. And in the
mm.
the book, she's just pretending to infantilize herself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So in order to break through a lot of these things and be able to do whatever the fuck she wants.
Oh,
So
okay.
so
That's even better. I feel.
exactly. So that's where I was very much so kind of like, I don't know how I feel about this rendition of the movie and a lot of choices that were made in the movie. I do think that the way that it ends, and I'm sorry for spoiling things for anybody, but sorry.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. I do think that she comes across as like having made all of her own choices, and like she comes across as being very I like the way that she was played in this version. I think that
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
the heart of the empowering message behind the book is still there,
Mhm.
but I also think that it could have been better.
Yeah.
And similarly to where Killers of the Flower Moon should have been directed by somebody else, Poor Things should have been directed by somebody else.
Mhm.
So I think that Barbie was directed by exactly who should have directed Barbie.
Mm.
And it also took a simplistic property, with literally no substance, like literally about a plastic doll, right? And turned it into an extremely interesting discourse on modern day sexism, right? And so they just, I think that they did so much with what it was, and also got so much visibility, like literally carried Oppenheimer through the box office, and that the Academy Awards shouldn't pretend that it's bigger than it is either. The Academy Awards gives out block awards to blockbuster movies all the time, and frankly speaking, a certain amount of it is pay to play. And Barbie is the best that it could have done in terms of choices in a lot of ways, I think, because of that. But I also I get what you're saying, but to a certain extent, I think that like having too much popularity works against you when it comes to the awards. So,
Mm,
mm.
mm. Well, speaking of, high budget films, we're kind of getting into an environment where companies are trying to maintain those big budgets, but how really how really like sustainable is it, as a company trying to you know increase. There have been increases in like um the minimum wage, other things that they have to think about when it comes to create like productions in California. I was just listening to a podcast, Talking Pictures, how Nancy Myers was approached by Netflix to do a movie, but she wanted, I think, 10-hour days. The project was budgeted for 130 to 150 million, and she was the one that was approached, but when they did the budget, they were like, "Oh no, it's too much. We have to
No,
like."
yeah, like from behind the scenes on like some of the other TV show properties that did have gotten picked up, some of the things that my friends have been doing, like when they originally got signed on for Netflix or when they started with their projects, it was like years ago, right? Like things take years in pre-production. So a lot of the deals that Netflix was slating back when it was throwing around bigger budgets, like 2015 through 2017, then got their budgets cut dramatically throughout the
Mhm.
actual pre-production process. So, there were a lot, especially a lot of these like live action anime productions and like fantasy productions, things that have a lot of special effects that are associated with them. Like I know for a fact that like on a couple of shows that my friends were doing, the original budgets were like major Game of Thrones money because it was also Game of Thrones days, right? Game of Thrones had such a
Mhm.
huge budget and Game of Thrones was making so much money. Everybody
Yeah,
was, water cooler conversations, Game of Thrones. That's back when we had offices.
yeah.
Like one of two things that came out of COVID: niche media.
Mm.
Like people are far more separated and they are not doing like there are a few things like this is why like the Vanderpump Scandal was such a big thing because like there are certain things where it's like a whole bunch of people all get together and then they have that shared experience, which is what a lot of media has been in the past. But a lot of the success of media has been in the shared experience opportunity. And because COVID removed the shared experience opportunity, we've had a really hard time rebounding from that. And cinemas have like had closed down in a lot of places and not rebounded. So there are frankly less theaters, less theatrical like money because there are less theaters, especially in small towns and in a lot of these places that you just they could not rebound. Like tiny
Mm.
town theaters just never rebounded. So and also in the office experience now as we're getting more remote, people are less they care less about what opinions their coworkers have or the people in their community have because they have more fractured lives and spend less time having conversations about those things. That's why the things that create shared experiences now they become even bigger as soon as they start rolling on trends. And people are looking for any opportunity they can to have those like conversation starters with one another. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because of like that kind of like shift, especially during the kind the writer strikes last year, I noticed a lot of the productions, being outside of California, even moving internationally. Is that something that you foresee just being the trend in the future? Do you think it's going to come back to LA, California, even within the US? Uh,
So, I'm not sure. And frankly, like there are a lot of different paths that I see that things could go down. And that has a lot to do with cursory industries and how they kind of leverage the opportunities that are created by the strikes and the amount of production that has traveled into other spaces.
yeah,
Something we've talked about a lot is that there's just been a lot of infrastructural development in other film communities around the world.
right, right.
It is like 20, 30 years now of a lot of major Hollywood film productions traveling to some of these spaces over and over and over again. And they've invested in like auxiliary areas to keep productions there and have them spending more money in their communities.
Hmm, hmm,
Um, Nowadays, it used to be that like certain types of production and almost all post-production had to happen here because like all of our like the audio and everything had to happen here because this is where not only the celebrities and talent lived, but also where all of the technology existed. Now,
mm,
now, you know, especially in some like there's some communities that have technology that is superior. And you know, it's the thing that keeps us together is that we are still the home to so many famous people. And like that's really like what Hollywood is sort of like living off of right now. Is it's like this is where a lot of the celebrities live, so it is easier to schedule with people, especially for, a lot of like auxiliary things in Los Angeles or in New York. But then you get where Dubai is actively competing for celebrities and where it's like, you know, in Dubai, they'll subsidize housing. You know what
hmm.
I mean? Like, and do things that are like not even legal here. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
restrictions are a little bit more lax, so why not go to those places that are less of a headache type of thing?
yeah. So like we and you so you do see like some like things where it's like as things become more international, and some of these communities like boom.
Mm,
I don't know, like right now, there's still no place like Los Angeles. Los Angeles is still the most competitive, is still the best place to be, and probably will be for another 10 years at least. But does it have more than 10 years? Does it have 100 years? Does it have like the long haul in it? Unless there's investment remade into the infrastructure here in the community here, I'm not totally sure because it's because we're replacing legitimate production with influencer production and content creation. So,
yeah,
like,
it's almost kind of see like a little shift in short form, like from long form. Um, but yeah, I it brings to mind the shift in automobile production, like from here to like international. So it kind of parallels that for
yeah.
me. So hopefully hopefully it's not to that extent, but yeah.
I
Uh,
mean, yeah, and honestly, like we were even going through similar union battles over the summer.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I think that the US is not designed to protect the its internal working body or demographic. We're designed to protect our
Investor.
uh yeah, our foreign investment prospects.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of what it comes down to is almost all of our laws are designed to protect our foreign investment prospects and not necessarily the individuals who live here. So a lot of the decision making is made for that. So, we never really, oh, yeah, it, it would be so we don't have co-production grants in the US. So you know what I mean? Like we literally can't, we are not attractive to international productions outside of our celebrity base. Like it is not attractive for foreign investors to actually produce cinema on our ground because we don't have co-production agreements. And as long as we have this like pseudo isolationist policy that only makes it unattractive to invest in us, that's going to be a restriction. Like you get state-based grants, and that's why you only see production happening in like Atlanta and in upstate New York, outside of yeah, that's like it really. Like New Orleans I think has some decent ones now too, and that's like it. I think New Orleans even took those back, so it's like redacted. I don't even think that's, I'm not sure what New Orleans is in right now. They're like up and down, back and forth, I have no idea. But like, and even in those cases, it's less streamlined, it's less money, and there's no upfront investment. So it's not competitive internationally. And when you can go to Spain and they'll give you better technology, 10-15% upfront so that you can cover your costs and 40% on the back end. So like, yeah. Yeah.
People are just like filming stuff here, like hoping to get,
Why? Yeah.
yeah.
Well, so here's the other thing too, is it's like those budgets, the international co-production budgets, all of those are $20 million budgets. Again, we were talking about like the future of cinema is not in the $200 million blockbuster budget. That future belongs to AI, frankly. The future of cinema is in the $20 million budgets that are actually making Oscar films. Like Oscar films don't get $200 million budgets. They get $20 million budgets. And that's also what foreign co-productions get. Like they don't get $200 million budgets. And the idea of things going into a Nancy Meyers $150 million range, that's prohibitive to foreign investment and to international co-production, to governments that are going to be willing to do a percentage of up to 40% in reimbursement, because then that's 40% government funding that's coming back. Like the money is actually from their taxpayers at root. So they're not going to pay 40% of $140 million production, even if you're getting a lot of jobs into their country, a lot of recognition to their country. It's a ridiculous amount of money for them,
Yeah.
like.
Well, I mean, you just gave us so much information. Can you break it down a little for us? And
um I mean, I don't know, like I talk really fast. Like I'm sorry about that.
I was just like, whoa. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense financially and in an investor standpoint. And unfortunately, that's like really where the bottom line is, right? You need to make movies or you need to make money from your movies.
Yeah, and like that's kind of well, so like yes and no. Let's get really, really like hippie crazy about things. Money's not real. Like it literally isn't. It literally doesn't matter at all. What you need to do is employ human beings, give them the means with which to survive and be happy, and to create art that can be influential and can sustain the kind of like social structures that we want for ourselves moving forward. The kind of like environments and kind of people that we want to be surrounded with, and we want our kids surrounded with and our grandkids surrounded with. So like fundamentally, when it comes to like governments investing in art, they should be doing that. It makes sense and it's smart. They don't need to be spending so much money that they can't feed their people, but they do need to be investing because that's what patrons do. That's what the entirety of society is founded on, right? That like when we have accumulated resources, they will go to things that benefit everyone, like art. So like, that is why our structure needs to be more sustainable within the whole picture of what human life and society looks like. Like when we are spending so much money on movies and so much of that money is going to literally nothing, like legitimately large amounts of budgets are not going to individuals to paying for salaries. They're not going to sustaining life or doing anything. They're going toward huge bonuses for executives that mostly made bad creative decisions throughout the process to make the property less good than it would have been otherwise. Like, and also things that get thrown away or wasted, like
Yeah.
frankly,
Yeah.
like the,
Food.
yeah,
Like,
but
just
it's
those
not
little
when
things.
you are cracking down on $140 million budget, a good half of that is definitely not going to anything useful to any individual. So like, you know, like because I don't think that $1 billion for somebody who already has $4 billion is actually useful because that's more money than they actually know what to do with in a responsible way. Like if you have more money than you can responsibly handle, give some of that to me and I will take care of it for you. I mean, real talk. Like I'll send 5 more caravan trucks into Gaza and I'll start another school program. Like there are people who know what to do with funds, and there are people out there that can actually responsibly execute on these things. And most of those people are struggling to get more funding because we are constantly burdened with more requests because there's so much need in the world. So, like, if you have extra and you aren't doing anything well with it, that's a choice you're making. That there are people that you can go to. I'm right here.
Put it DM Melissa Lottie on her.
Yeah, for sure. Hit me up on any of our social platforms. Say, I got money for Melissa. I promise you, I will send you a Cash App or something that you can transfer it to immediately. Hell, just go on our donation site. You don't even have to ask.
Yeah. I kind of want to just ask those who are watching and with us right now if you guys have any questions or wanted to add anything.
Well,
Don't be shy.
so I think that this is pretty good. For a first episode to just sort of be talking about industry news stuff. As I mentioned, we just finished award season. Um, I think that people are kind of recuperating just a little bit from that, and we're entering into spring production. I think that I know a lot of shows have already started or are starting up and going into physical production. Writers' rooms obviously opened up right at the beginning of this year. Catching up after such a long period of time where nothing was occurring. So it's a exciting time in the industry. A lot is happening. And a lot is changing. So lots to pay attention to and keep on top of. So, um, yeah, I think that you guys might have noticed that we were doing more co-production breakdowns in our newsletter. We've been doing the co-production workshops now for 2 years. So we've really kind of honed that in. And we have a couple scheduled coming up. Including one at Cinegear coming up this summer. So hope that you guys will be able to join us for some of those. Yeah, well, so since we have a little bit of time, we have 18 more minutes. We were last session going to talk a little bit more about the strikes. We were talking about mostly about the strikes during our initial podcast, and then we were talking about like awards season stuff. Well, so I'm going to go back to the award season stuff because I don't know, like I didn't mention any where we were talking earlier, we didn't talk at all about the BAFTA. And I do think that the BAFTA is gaining the kind of recognition that the Oscar does have. So I do want to kind of give a shout out to BAFTA that they are as equally competitive. I really do feel like the Oscar ends up just sort of like doing what BAFTA does mostly. Like the last 2 years, at least, it feels as though a lot of the BAFTA choices have influenced the Oscar. And BAFTA is also more demographically diverse, and working harder in that direction, frankly. Like BAFTA is doing festival events every single place that I go. BAFTA is doing festival events, like trying to gain more equity and diversity, going out of their way to like get more people nominated for their award in more diverse areas. Yeah, so just kind of a shout out to BAFTA, and that we could see a little bit of a shift in that direction of like, because BAFTA is European, they're based in the UK. They have a lot of the like similarity with the US. And I would love in the future to see a really big award that has that same kind of comparable energy come from someplace that wasn't like, you know, just as bad in terms of like having like a really racist background. But at least it's different, you know? So at least there is a second award that's still got that kind of popularity. And with that, I mean, I think that it's okay if we wrap up a little bit early. I'm going to be honest. Our note-taking apps quit on us.
We're done for the
We've
day.
got no more notes.
There's one left, like still
Our
grinding.
artificial, just for anybody who's not watching the full thing, our artificial intelligence robots that are supposed to be record keeping decided this meeting was over. I think that it's because we ran out of things to say and we were kind of like, what should we talk
We're
about?
like, they're not talking. We're gonna leave. Thanks, AI.
She's stumbling through this. It's tragic. I quit. That was what the AI robot told me. So I lost all confidence because of it. So sad.
No, but today's session was really great. Just talking about the Oscars and, you know, kind of the future of where the industry is going. Let's see where it is.
Yeah.
This year. Hopefully, you know, things are going to be picking up even more around
Well,
today.
yeah, and I mean, like, we can, like, I want to get into the nitty-gritty of some of this international co-production gossip, which I just don't think that we have the time to do in the next 14 minutes, but I really do want to give a lot of time, probably in our next session, to like, what's going on in China? Who's co-producing with China? What's going on with all of the Chinese organizations and demographics, and what happened with the history and their propaganda department, and why are people like suspicious about working with China, and like, you know, what is it like to work with China today and how have they modernized. And there's a whole episode just in China, frankly. But also we can talk about but they also have a lot of money. They have a lot of money and they are opening up doors for co-production and they're co-producing films like they never have before in the past. So, the scarier that as somebody who's gone to Africa over and over again can tell you, things are only scary until you jump in. The water is only like terrifying until you actually like get in there. So China is only going to be scary so long as we keep othering them and not engaging, because they're just people and it's another community and another culture to collaborate with and create with and learn from, and another set of skills to collaborate with. So that'll be something that we'll probably maybe talk about in the next episode, because I can't do it in 13 minutes. There's just a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds too juicy for 13 minutes.
Yeah. The other places that I do want to talk about in some of our upcoming episodes, I definitely want to talk about Spain. We're currently working on a co-production project with them right now, the Spanish government. So hopefully that flies and we can actually do a fully produced episode like on the ground in Spain. That would be nice. And then also I definitely want to do a co-production episode. Maybe we'll do Spain and Brazil in the same episode, or we definitely want to talk about Brazil as well, because that's another place where co-production is booming and has a lot of new money that is accessible to indie producers that are looking for those areas. A lot of co-production governments, a lot of spaces that have previously sort of been gatekept. I know that when I first started studying co-production for producing, because the reason that I initially started like looking into this area specifically, I was headhunted into film production in 2012, and I had a background already in import-export management. I'd already opened up 2 import businesses, and that was something that I'd done in the background. So I knew that having that understanding of permitting and like visas and travel restrictions and all of that would be something that would also be useful as a producer. So very early on in 2012, I started looking immediately into that niche. Back then, it was really, really hard to do co-production if you were outside of a major studio. Almost all co-production agreements required that you be with a major studio and that the project like essentially already have a multi-million-dollar budget. But, in many of those places, actually getting funding also capped at a certain level. So there wasn't actually an incentive outside of the European co-production system, out of the EU agreements, for film production in those areas, which is why you didn't see a lot of US films being produced in those spaces unless it was like James Bond and they wanted something to be done specifically in Europe for whatever reason. The co-production agreements, the like foundation of the heart of them, like I said, they are for the $20 million budget or less. So like they're looking for things that are $2 to $20 million. It's a very accessible space for the average indie filmmaker. So it was actually money that was gatekept entirely from US film production by being in that space, but inaccessible for that space from the types of people that were able to apply to it. These days, with everything that's happening, all of these governments want to be more accessible to independent filmmakers and have removed a lot of the studio definition has been redefined. So now it just has to be a licensed business. And as long as you are a part of a business that has been, officially licensed as an LLC or as a production company, then you can access those funds so long as you've got a co-production partner in the area that is willing to vouch for you and work with you throughout the paperwork process. So, it's as of the last 7 years that things have really changed, and the scope it's drifted more to being suitable for the like indie filmmaker, the type of person that is it like the average filmmaker, the actual filmmakers, the people that are like doing all of the work on a lot of these projects. And then mostly just like having to sit on them or sell them self-financed for
Mhm.
years and years and years.
Mm.
So, we'll talk more about like, Spain and European co-production. We'll talk about the EU probably through the filter of Spain first, and then at some point in time, we'll probably just have somebody from Film France come in and do a talk with us because, we do a lot like directly with them.
Mhm.
And I think that Film France, in terms of like co-production authorities, international co-production authorities, they're the most hands-on and um customer service oriented.
Oh,
Yeah. Which is why you see like a lot not only does France have the most co-production agreements with other countries, like they have the widest net, but they also are the easiest to deal with because they just have, a very like well-informed, wonderful to deal with uh governing body in Film France that helps to facilitate all of their co-productions. Um, yeah. So there'll be some of our follow-ups. If any of you guys are looking into doing co-productions, if you have an impact film and it's something that supports the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, you can always submit it through the website and, see about working with New Moon. Also, definitely recommend that people who are interested in co-production join one of our workshops. You can email us or DM us on any platform to find a workshop near you.
yeah. The website is www.newmoonfilms.com.
Yay! All right. Cool. I think that is good. Thank you guys for being
Yeah,
here
thank you
and
so
for
much.
supporting. Yeah.
If there
Um,
was any issues, like this is our first live session, so yeah, we want to iron out some of the
Yeah, we're gonna be
wrinkles.
watching all the comments we're on YouTube, just for
Yeah.
FYI, for like where we're being streamed right now. We're streaming directly to YouTube. For future sessions, we will also like work on multicasting onto other platforms. But for now, feel free to like watch back or to give notes on YouTube, to send me notes like privately, however you want to do it. This whole process is really just to keep more accurate, up to date on like what's going on, and everybody more accurate and up to date on what's going on behind the scenes in the industry, and then also to just sort of go on the record with a lot of our opinions and the details of like the inner workings of what we have going on with things, just mostly just to go on the record, period. To create a space to go on the record and to create a public discourse. So as much you know taking that into consideration, if you disagree with anything, or if have questions that you want to throw my way, go for it. I want to make sure that we're creating, like a space for optics and for you know, I do the best that I can to make sure that my opinions are as informed and intelligent as possible. But the best way to do that is, to actually make sure that your opinions are informed, is to say them out loud so that people can correct you if you're ever wrong.
I just want to say Melissa's the veteran. I'm the
Yeah.
newbie. She's my mentor. I'm the mentee. So
If
be nice to
anything,
me.
if anything is like, if you have any problems, yeah, come at me. I'm not afraid of you. I'm not afraid of anything. But for your own sake, be nice, because then I'll be nice.
Yay. Yeah,
Yay.
thanks so much, guys,
Yeah.
and we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Talk to you all soon.